Hello, so today we're going to be talking about the difference between enumerations and arrays. And so enumerations, they're a structure understood by the compiler to hold a certain value, and they're accessible by programmers, so programmers can access, for example, some value by name rather than by value. Whereas an array will hold basically a structure in order of some kind of data type, maybe like a string or an array of integers. And it will hold basically something that the developer will be able to access and manipulate. So we're going to start with an example here. So I'm going to open a code window. My computer is not the fastest, so it's going to take a quick second. Okay, cool. We're going to open a new file, close this tab while we're at it. Okay, we're also going to change the language to C++. This computer is on a window. Okay, C++, cool. And with every C++ file, you're obviously going to have the usual. You're going to have some kind of like main function. You're going to maybe include some files or some libraries. I'm going to include an IO stream so we can print out, and I'm going to include string. So you can see an example using arrays of strings, and we're going to set the namespace to the standard library. Namespace. Okay. Now I'm going to save this. Okay. So for enumeration, there's actually a slight difference between enums and enum classes, but for this case, I'm going to use enum classes because they're more verbose, and you'll be able to understand and see exactly what I'm addressing when I use an enum class over an enum. Enums store values in the global scope, so if I have an enum that declares some variable a, I'm going to be able to use a globally, which we actually don't want to do because it's not verbose and it's not beneficial to us as a programmer to be able to see this kind of information. I want to be able to demonstrate. So I'm going to say enum class, and for this example, we're going to look at months. When my computer loads. Months, and so by default, compilers set enumerations to start counting from 0, but you can actually start counting from any value you want, and any variable that comes after that will be plus 1 the previous value. Oops, not months, January. We're going to set this to like, so we're not going to actually set a value because we already know it's 0. February, March, April, and my computer is kind of slow, so you get the idea. So we're going to go to strings. We're going to make a string array. So here, maybe as programmers we want to be able to like print out the name of like the month to maybe like the user. January, February, March. You get the idea. My computer is lagging, so we'll just leave it at that. And so now for this example, I'm going to attempt to print out, like, for example, the first month in the year, which we know to be January. So if I run this, you already know what's going to happen. I'm going to compile this. I'm going to run it, and I'm going to get January back. Simple enough. Okay. And now here's something that would be invalid. So I would not be able to print out January like this. It does not make sense. There is no, I guess, real value stored in there. And so we would not be able to access January like this. Attempting to print it out would cause an error. You can force it. So C++ does have a function called static cast. But really what this is used for is maybe addressing values that are static and we don't want to change them, but we also don't want to remember the name. So maybe something like building a web server has hundreds and hundreds of errors that we might want to go through and return to the user, or status codes actually. So for example, it returns a 200 if the value that, or if the request was successful, or a 500 if there's an internal server error, or 404, which is the most famous one, if the page doesn't exist. And as programmers, we don't want to remember all of them. And so this is one reason why we might use something like an enumeration.